guys, welcome back to the second part of the water bending effect here in Blender. So guys, I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this, especially this part of this water bending and how I made this water bending effect. So this water bending effect is heavily based on particle simulation. So sit back and watch this video to the end so you won't miss any part and anything I do in this video. So we start by tracking this footage, and you can see what we have in this footage. So we don't really have some camera movement in this scene, so we need to track it and we need to do some camera stuff. So sit back and let me show you how I did it. Okay, so first thing I will do is to just track it like what we always do, like normal tracking. So I'm going to do auto tracking this, so I'll just go ahead and detect some features. So I'm going to tweak the settings for me to have the better features selected, so to have a lot of points in this scene. Okay, so now I'll just give it a little bit. Okay, this is okay. So I'm going to delete all the trackers on his face because I don't really want to track his body. So I'm going to select it and delete all those trackers. Okay, I'm going to press E, then track all the points. As you can see, the tracking is done, so I'm going to do some little bit of cleanup on this. So I'm going to select them and delete all those bad track once and for all, so we don't have any error in the solving this camera. Okay, I did this is good for to solve, so let me just delete. Okay, now this should be okay. This should be okay for this. Let me just clean up a little bit. Okay, I think this is okay. So the next thing now is to input the camera information of the lens, everything. So in the settings here, I'm going to go to track here, go to camera. Now put the camera, which is 23.5 is the sensor size. So and the lens, I think is 35mm lens. So I'm going to go here in the software. So I'm going to choose tripod. I've shown you guys how to do this in the previous tutorial, so you can check it out how to do this. So I'm going to just to solve this camera motion. Okay, as you can see that this line is straight and I have a good camera solve. So I'll just go down to the settings here, select this to have the scene in the scene. So after doing that, we have this in 3D scene, you can see. So I'm going to set the floor like the way we always do. Pick 3 trackers on the floor, then to set that at the floor. Select floor, you can see that. So I'm going to pick one as the origin. So I'm going to pick one very close to him as the origin. So I don't think this oriented properly, so you can see here. So I'm going to check it once again, then redo it. So the scale, let me just do the scale first. Pick 2 markers, then set scale, so we can manage the distance properly. So now I can adjust this. I will set this at the floor. So it's still doing wrong this time, so I'll just go in 3D and do it. I'll set the orientation properly in 3D. So let's go to layout. Now we have our scene. So I just click here. Now show tracking markers. You can see everything is going wrong. So press 0 to view the camera. You can see everything is going wrong. So I will select the camera, then orient it myself. So I rotate it by rotating like this. I will G to grab it back like so. So this is it. So I'm going to just to align it, try to align it properly. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to align it like this. R, then Z should be here, then RY should be like this, then R and X So that should be on the floor. Then R, Z to fix the proper position, then G, then Z to grab it up. Okay, a little bit of R and Z. So this is how to do a manual adjustment. Then G, then Y, no, X to drag it back here. So this is how to do a manual orientation. You just have to sit back, then do it manually. You can see everything is aligned properly. So, okay. So the next step, I'll just go ahead and hide all these tracking markers. I don't need them again. So now you have my scene, this cube. I'm going to delete that. I will only leave the plane, the ground plane. And for this, I will don't want to render the two layers. So I delete one, which is the foreground. Delete that. Okay, now I have one render layer to render out of this. Okay, now let me show you how I do the okay. So the first thing I'm going to do now, let me just delete this lamp. Don't need it. So to colorate this water ball, so I'll just press Shift A, go to use this sphere. So this is the water ball I'm going to use. I'm going to scale it down a bit to the size of its hand. You can see like this. So I'm going to use displacement modifier to drive this. So I'm going to drive this with displacement. So first I'm going to use the subdivision surface, then clap it to 2, then I will add a displacement modifier to this. So this displacement I'm going to use, add a new, click here. Now I'm going to go to the texture image, then I'm going to choose cloud. You can see how this is look. So I'm going to give it big scale of cloud. You can see that. Now I'm going to go back to the modifier, then reduce the strength. I don't need something that heavy for the water displacement. Okay, I'm going to W to smooth shade. You can see that. I think this is still rough, so I'm going to go back, give it a big lamp. You can see now this is okay in my own liking. Okay, so the next thing to do now is to make sure we have a continuous driving of this. So I'm going to show you what I mean by doing this. So what I did here is I'm going to show you. Let me just save this first. This should be 2. I did one before. Okay. So I'm going to create an empty for this. I will create this at the back here, so I don't want to just to make sure I have everything in order. So I'm going to create an empty for this. So this empty will be animated and will be driving up. So I'm going to show you how I do this. So press N here. Let me just view this shortcut for you to see everything first. So go to the item. So in the Z axis of this, you can see this is the Z axis. I'm going to right click, then select single keyframe. I'm going to insert single keyframe to this. So this single keyframe will be driving up. So I'm going to go to the animation here. So I'm going to edit this animation. Go to the graph editor here. We drag this up a bit. Then I will press N. Sorry, I'm going to select the empty first. So you can see all the settings here. I'll go to the modifier here, then add a generator modifier. So this generator will be driving up. You can see. So when I play this animation, this plane should be drive up, and it will add no end, just be flay up like so. So I'm going to make sure I have a low movement of it over here because I don't want too much from it. Let me just give it an 100 like so. So you can see how it is going. So let me just go back to this. So I'm going to select this again, and I'm going to choose this empty. Let me just show you how to do this. In this settings over here, I'm going to choose object, this coordinate. I'm not going to click here, then select the empty. You can select the empty by doing this, but it's better you select it this way. It's much faster. So now I can just play this and have this on this. You can see how it displays. You can see this is how I do this. So in my own liking, this is so fast, it's too fast. So I'm going to go back to the animation to edit this a bit. I'm going to pause it, then click the empty again. So I'm going to give it about 0.01. 0.01. Okay, so I think that should be enough of the animation, and it's too slow. Maybe 0.05 should be okay. 0.05. Okay, I think this is nice. Alright, so I'll go back to the layout then. Now I'm going to do the particles emitter. Alright, so before I do that, I'm going to give this a shader, which is the water shading. So just, it's very simple to do this. Just go to the shading here, add a new shader. For this, I'm going to give this a transmission, 1% of transmission, because this is water, and it's like this because we don't have roughness in it. So I'm going to drag the roughness to 0 so that we have some cool of water going. You can see how it looks already. It looks so cool. So that is how I do this. So I'm just going to drag this back a bit to give it some shape. I'm going to use the Mulgrave texture and put it in displacement like so. You can see what it does. So I'm going to reduce the scale very much. You can see how it looks now. So now I'm going to go back to the layout, select the object. Now go back to the object here, go back to the visibility. Now I'm going to change this to cycles render, and now I'll go back to the visibility object, visibility. Now I'm going to turn off the transmission. It's very important, you should turn off the transmission. I will still go back and show you the reason why I turned off the transmission. So for now, let's keep that. Okay, now I'm going to create the particle emitter. So I'm going to put it at the back of the camera also because I don't want to mess up the scene. So I'm just going to create another UV sphere. So but this UV this time I'm going to edit it a little bit. Okay, so what I will do now is to click here. Now select the proportional editing, and I'm going to select some part of it. Then I will displace it a bit. In my own liking, I'm going to displace it. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this. I will duplicate this like multiple times. We'll make this a lot more straight, and the third one should be just so flat like so and small. Let me just edit some part of it. Okay, so I'm going to give this a smooth shading. And what I'm going to do is to assign the same material I do to this. Let me just go back and give this like the water. So just to assign the same material to this. To select the water, and this select the water, and also this select the water. Now when you go back to the material section, everything select as the water. Okay, so for this I'm going to select this three. I'm going to press M. Then I will add it in the one collection, which is a new collection, which is water particles. Okay, so this collection will be the emitter. So let me go back to this. Okay, now I'm going to emit water from this. Click here. So let's go back to 3D view. Okay, I'm going to go to the particle system, add a new particle system for this, and I'm going to play this. You can see how the particle system is emitting. So for this, I don't want the particle system to emit everywhere all over the sphere. So I'm going to select some part of this, like this part. I'm going to select it to emit the particles. So what I'm going to do is to go to the vertex group here. This vertex group, I'm going to assign a new vertex group for this and assign the shape. So what I did here, assign the group. Now I will go back to the particle system. I will go down to this vertex group, and I'm going to insert the group. So when you play this, we only have this emit at the part of the group. You can see how it looks. Okay, so this is really going well right now. So the next thing I'm going to do is to, now I'm going to select from the source. So it's better the one I'm going to choose from. So based on it, so what I'm going to do is to go down to the physics here. Now go back to the render. So I'm going to change it from alloy to the collection. Okay, so I'm going to pick the collection, which is the water particles. Remember that. So you can see now we have the water particles, but it's coming out evenly. So I'm going to edit it, choose rotation and pick random. So I'm going to resize, give it the random scale, and the size also should be like a random size. Not so big, but okay, you can see that is coming out like the water. Okay, so when you go to the 3D, you see something like this. But this is not the only particle I'm going to add. I'm going to add another particle. Which one? That one will be more bigger, and that is all. So let me just go back to 3D here. So I'm going to assign a new another particle system. Pick this 3. I'm going to duplicate it, drag it back, and I'll just S then Z to make sure that is very, very long. You can see how that is long, and I'm going to assign it to a new group, which is okay. So this is another group. I'm going to assign it into this particles emitter once again. Okay, from this, I'm going to start a new particle system, which is a new one. I'm going to play this also. So I'm going to do to the settings. I'm going to do almost the same settings. I have a new group to this also. Okay, but this time this one will be more bigger. Collection, then select the another particles. You can see how this is emitting. So for this, pick the rotation and pick the group. So I'm going to set the random scale for this also. Then the size should be small. You can see. So depend on how it looks, I'm going to edit this a bit. So let's look how it looks here. No, I don't like it that way. Okay, I think this is too long. I'm going to reduce it a bit. Okay, I think this is good. And for the fourth particles, let me go back to this. I'm going to emit enough particles from this. So the first one should be 2000 particles out of that. So you can see how that is moving. So let me go back to shading, see how that looks. So I will still come back to the particles, and let's do the animation first. So you can see that I'm going to make sure I animate this to follow the hand and rotate along with it. So I'm going to turn on this auto keyframe so I can set things right. I'm going to drive this back a bit. Okay, so it's good that way. I'm going to drag it to the end like so. I'm going to make sure I animate it. So go back to the 20 frame, animate it, scale it up a bit to the 40s, animate it up like so. The animation is very simple. So 60 frame. Okay, so let's see how this looks. All right, you can see how that looks, and let me do the next. So let me set this as the collision object. For this, I'm going to set the collision, and I'm going to increase strip and this, also the dam a bit. So let's play this to see how it looks. You can see, so this is exactly what I'm going for. It's taking, it's a little bit crazy, so let me just drag it back. It's coming up crazy up again, so okay, and this is good. So I'm going to give this some kind of thickness to have this. I'm going to give this solidify modifier, and this solidify modifier will be above this collision. I'm going to give it some thickness to this. So let's play this so that it will, you can see I will have more things around here. You can see how that looks. Okay, so that is that for now. First thing I'm going to do is to do some adjustments in this faces. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go to the faces right here. So first thing I will do is to increase the numbers of emitting particles. So I will put this to 3000. So when this is emitting, it will emit 3000 particles. Okay, so let's come down to the velocity. You can see right here we have velocity. So I'm going to give this, I'm going to increase this like random increase, and the tangent also some random increase. And for this object velocity, I'm going to give a little bit of velocity, like something like this, and also the randomize a bit, not too much, a bit, because that a bit self will do a lot in this. So you can see how this is going now. Okay, this is looking good, but I want to add more particles to this. But instead of doing that and adding much numbers, I'm going to do it by adding children. So what I'm going to do is that let's go down to this physics tab. Now you can see children. This is none. This is simple. Now when you give the simple of, let's see, 10, this is 100. Now you can put this to 10 based on what you like. 10 should be okay. Now the display amount will be 10 and the render of this object will be 10. Now we can give this some, let's give it some size. Let's just give it a randomized size so it won't be even. See that? And also to the roughness. Now let's come to the roughness here. Now you can give some roughness. You can see what it's doing. Okay, so let's play this to see what is going. You can see what is going on here. So it's like something is going wrong here in this. So let me just tweak some things back. Okay, so let's play this one more time. Alright, this is doing good right now. You can see. Okay, so I'm going to give it a little bit of roughness. Okay, you can see. So this will be nice. So let me play this. Alright, you can see that it's emitting much more particles right now. But it's based on what you want, and what you want is to look like. You can, for my own liking, I will put it to 5. 5 will be the display and 5 will be the render. So nothing much. I think this should be enough. Okay. Alright, that's good. So let's do the environment texture. Okay, now I go back to the shading tab. Now click here, go to the world. Now you can just press Shift A, go to the texture. Now you can select environment texture. Plug that to the background. Now I click on the open, then I will load in my environment texture I have for this. So you can get the texture on my Patreon, and you can get the project file for this and the footage, everything on my Patreon, so you can play along and work with the tutorial like I'm showing you right here. So let me just go to the texture. And this texture was shot on set the day I shoot it, so I also do this texture. So let me go back to this frame. So I'm going to do this transparent. So I have this transparent from now. Now if I press Ctrl then T, now you have the mapping node and the texture coordinate. So from this mapping node, I'm going to tweak this on the z-axis like so, so that it can face the proper direction of the exact location. I think this should be fine. So let me go back to the world, and when you look at the environment, you can see this. You can see what is going on here. Okay, now I can go back to this. Now I can go back to the frame, or give it transparency again. You can see that everything now is working fine. So for some reason we don't have the proper reflection. I don't know, maybe you get what I'm saying. Even the actual reflection is not appearing in this simulation. So we need to add that. Should be able to see that in this reflection like you see in my video. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to add the reflection. Okay, so what I did is to import this image, this video clip you are seeing here, as a plane to the background. So to do that, you just have to press Shift A. Now go to the image here. You can say image as plane. If you don't add this image as plane features available, you can go to the preferences, then go to the add-on, I guess. When you click on the add-on, just type image. Now you can see, you can tick this import image as plane. You can see that, then just save it, then that's all. Okay, now press Shift A, go down to this image, then you can see image as plane. Okay, when you click that, just locate where your video file is. Okay, so this should display, but it should display according to this video. So but for some reason it's not displaying, but don't worry about that. I'm going to show you how to make this work. So go to the shading. Now we can see what is going on in this scene. We have this movie clip import, and it enters the principal BFDF shader and it comes out to this output. But let's focus on this. You can see the number of frames. Let's check this. Okay, now this is the frames, and we need to set it according to the frame we have here, which is 167. So I'm going to go back to the shading. I'm going to input the frames 167. Okay, you can see, and that should be able to play according to the video we have on the screen. So let's just put this here. Now to be able to see this, you can see that this is loading and it's working exactly. So what I'm going to do is to put this behind my element, my 3D element. So I'm going to make sure I perfectly put it, and I'm going to try as much as possible to match it with the screen here. Now when you look closely, you can see that we have some reflection of the hand going on. You may not see it properly, but when we go to the Cycles rendering engine, you should be able to see that. But before you do that, let's go back to this shading, then go to the world. So I want to do some few things in this world. So I'm going to add, press Shift A, go to the color, then add the gamma. Note to this, plug that in between of this image and the background. So I'm going to do is to reduce this gamma with like 0.7, like so. So we should be in waterfall from the hand. So what I'm going to do now is to go back to the Cycles render engine, save it one more time, go to the Cycles, and let's wait for this to load up. So you can see that there's a lot of noise being generated from that video clip that I had behind. You can see that. So the best thing to do is to make sure we have this video in a separate layer. So what I'm going to do is to hide all this layer like so, just to make sure everything look neat. So I'm going to click on it, then press M, create a new layer. I'm going to call this BG, which is the background. Okay, so this will be the BG, which is the background layer. So what I'm going to do is to click here, press Option, which is the left click. So if you are not seeing this, just press N. I'm just going to view. So you can see what I'm pressing. Okay, so that's it. So click Options, which is the right click. Then I will go to the view layer, and I'm going to set this as indicated only. So this will indicate only, it will not show in the render. Okay, so let's wait for that to load. So that is finished loading. You can see that if you look closely to the water we did here, you can see that we are having some kind of reflection, our hand reflection out of this. So the next thing, you can see that this water is not even more clean, it's very, very dark. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to select this object here. So I'm going to go to the object data properties here, and I'm going to go down to the visibility. Now I'm going to hide the transmission. So for all the objects, I'm going to hide the transmission for the object of the water. So I'm going to click on this, also hide the transmission for all that. So now let's go back to the full render to see what we get on this. You can see that this is a little bit dark. So what I'm going to do now is to make sure I do something to this background. Click on the background. So I'm going to go here to the object. So instead of having the principal BFDF shader, I'm going to delete that and add something different. So go to shading. I'm going to add emission to this. So you see the difference of the emission. You can see that the water is very, very much more clear now, and you can see the reflection of my hand in this water, and that is why I caused the background to reflect to the water only. And you can see that this is really, really doing good. Okay, so this floor, this ground plane I'm using right now is being caused by the shadow. It's cast with the shadow catcher. So you might like it and leave it like that, but depends on what you can do. You can leave it, and you can also just get rid of the shadow catcher if you want. So instead of using the shadow catcher, you can make it to be old out. But in this case, I don't really want anything to cast shadow on the floor, because the water will just be dropping and it will gone. So what I'm going to do is, you can see the shadow here. You can see the shadow. So I'm going to do that is to off the shadow and click the hold out. So we won't be able to see anything from the floor, and there's no shadow will be emit from the floor also. And this is really, really good, because I don't want any shadow to be cast on the floor. Okay, so that is that, and the next thing to do is almost done. The next thing to do now is to do the compositing. So I have to rotoscope, which is the mask out the hand. So what I'm going to do is to mask out only the hand. So just let's do the compositing first. So what I'm going to do now is to just do some test render. I'm going to give it a low sample of 50. Let me just check my settings if everything is working properly. So let me give this a quick render to see what we have in the scene. Okay, now you can see that the render is done, and because of the motion tracking and the effect that Blender had to do by default, we have motion blur in this. Let me show you. When you go to the render settings here, now when we check the motion blur, you can see that it's ticked and the settings is there. So for this, I will leave the motion blur, and for the setting I will leave that as a default. Now let's go to the composite. You can see that we have some things going on in this compositing scene. You can leave this, but for some reason I'm going to leave this. So I'm going to do this in my own way. So I'm going to delete everything. So let me delete everything to start from the beginning to show you guys. So first thing, I will press Shift A, go to the input. Now I'm going to choose the render layer as the input, and Shift A again, the input, which is the movie clip. So that should be aside, and Shift A, go to the output, set the viewer, then another Shift A, output, set the composite. So this is the first basic node you need. So the next, now we need to add something to connect them together, which is the alpha over. Now press Shift A, go to the color, now select the alpha over, put that here. So first thing I'm going to do is to connect this alpha over together with the composite. Okay, now we have the forward. So now I'm going to plug our background, which is our footage, on top, and our VFX, which is our water, we put it at the bottom. So this is how it should be done. You can see that we have everything set back instead of having that big giant node setting up. So you can see that we are having some kind of water falling from the hand. So you can fix that by doing some masking. So let me go to the motion tracking. First of all, I want to hide them. Press it to select everything, then H to hide them. Okay, so now I have to go to the masking session. So I press tab. By pressing tab, you are in masking session. So you can do that here in motion tracking and click here, press to the masking. So first thing I'm going to do is to do some simple mask so I can show you how this is done. So you can just click here. By adding a mask, you can see here, you can give it a hand. So you can just rename that to know where your mask and to identify it. So what I'm going to do now is to do some basic shape for this. So I'm doing some basic shape for this, which is the hand. So for that, I'm going to just to rotoscope the hand. You can see by clicking and dragging, you are drawing the shape. Click and drag, you are drawing the shape. Click and drag, you are drawing the shape. So depend, this is how this should be. But you have to just to make sure you do this properly and you take your time to do the masking. Always take your time to do masking, because a little bit of mistake in masking, you might ruin your VFX totally. So now this is a simple mask. You have to animate this mask by clicking on this auto keyframe, then go to the another frame, then adjust this accordingly. So let's go back to the composite. So to use this mask, I'm going to press Shift A. Now I'm going to go to the color here. So I'm going to go to the input. I'm going to choose a mask. This is a mask node. So I'm going to click here. Let me just zoom in to show you properly. I'm going to click here. Now I have the hand mask. Click on that. Okay, so you can be able to view this hand mask. You can see this hand mask. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to plug that inside this factor of this one. So by doing this, you can see that we don't have our view going on here. We only see this in this hand because it's direct input. So we need to indirect bit by inverting this mask node. So to do that, press Shift A, go to the color. Now add the invert node. Plug that here. Now you can see that it's inverted indirectly. So that is how you should do your masking. So when you zoom in, now you can see that everything is going on properly. But you can do something else by blurring this a little bit. By using a blur node with a filter, now you go to a blur, plug out here, now go choose a vast Gaussian. Now blur the X and Y like a few multiple times. 2 is okay for now. You can see that everything should be working fine. So now you can do your color the way you like. You can just pick a color balance. Now you can tweak a lot of things in this color. So for the left, let me just use something like this. The gain should be something like this. The gamma also should be something like this. So depend on what you want. You can do a lot of things. There's also use saturation value node. I think that should be in the color. Use saturation value. You can increase the saturation value here. Okay, and also the value. So you can tweak the value a little bit to give it some random shape. But depending on the look you are looking for, you can do your color grade. I will still make a color grade tutorial on Blender so you can learn. There's a the color grading in here is very wide, so you have to learn it to do it. Okay, so I'm not going to show you how to do the color grading, but you can just do some color mix and you will get a nice look. So that's it. So let me show you how to render this. So to render this, what you have to do is to render this to the your final output here. Let's click here, then go to the final output. Now you have to give this a name. You have to choose here and choose the directory. If it's a video, you can put it here. Then you have to give it a name, like waterbend. water bending. So I'm going to give it like 03. So to give it a random name. So if you want to render this as a video directly, instead of choosing a file format for PNG, you can choose video. Click on that. Now when you choose this encoding, you can change it to MPGE4, and that's it. You can just do only that two things, then clicking on the render, then you should render animation. So that's how to do it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you guys in the next part.